Hey guys, if you're looking for the Portland Real Estate Investing Podcast, don't worry, we're still here. We're now the Realized Gains Podcast. We have the same great guests and interviews, and of course, the same great hosts. Check it out.
Once you have your reserves, then as long as it makes sense, for me, if it cash flow and it has potential equity growth, yes. You might not see equity within the next 1 or 2 years, but I know that especially in Oregon, Portland, we have a lot of stats and it shows a lot of numbers, and I'm confident in Portland, so I would still invest if I could get it cash flow.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 13 of the Portland Real Estate Investing Podcast. My name is Jordan Lee and I'm your co-host today. I'm a mortgage lender based in Portland, Oregon, and I'm licensed in about 13 states. And I invest primarily in single family residents.
Yeah, and I'm your co-host, Stephen Tran. I am an Oregon licensed real estate agent and I'm a multifamily investor.
And today we are interviewing Tony Ngo, who he's been an agent for over 15 years, super well established, and really at this point kind of a mentor towards agents, and I would consider him a mentor as well. He's a big time investor. He basically wrote the book on BRRRR, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. He's invested in mobile home parks. He's invested in single family stuff. He's done a bunch of flipping. And then he has commercial projects as well. And another thing that he does is he does joint ventures to scale. I partner with him. Do you?
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So if you don't know Tony or you haven't partnered with Tony, I don't know what you're doing. So. Yeah, so this is a great episode. So tune in.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into the Portland Real Estate Investing Podcast. My name is Jordan Lee.
I'm Stephen Tran.
And we've got Tony Ngo with us here today.
Hey there.
Thanks so much for joining us, Tony. As you know from our introduction, Tony's a super experienced investor, and he's been in real estate for 15 plus years. Real quick, Tony, you want to just kind of tell us what you were doing before real estate, how you kind of made that transition to real estate and investing, and kind of the story there?
I started in real estate back in 2006. Before that, right after high school, I started a cell phone shop. So I did that for about 6 years, transitioned over to being a realtor. Eventually in 2012, I became an investor / realtor still.
Okay. So you were selling cell phones for a while. How did you go from just out of high school to be like, I'm going to open my own business and sell cell phones?
So I had a summer job and, after school job. Worked at McDonald's, then went over to Old Navy, then went back to McDonald's, and I just hated the 9 to 5.
You didn't like flipping burgers? Or were you the guy on the radio?
I was the guy at the drive-thru. I was the assembly guy. I did a bunch of different things.
Okay.
The thing that broke the camel back, let's say, I was at the PSU McDonald's.
Uh-huh.
Not even the manager, it's like the assistant manager was telling me that, hey, you have to go back into the trash area and sweep up or clean up. And I was pissed. I was like, why do I have to do that? And then he said, do that or else you can pay with your paycheck. I said, okay. So I ended up quitting that day.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, I just jumped over to do cell phones. The reason was my cousin had a movie business or movie rental business, the Asian movie rental business.
Oh, like a VHS shop?
Mm-hmm. And so she was doing that, and then she had a space within her business. So I came up with the idea of selling actually car parts, like body kits, tail lights, stuff like that. But that didn't go as well. So I added cell phone, and the cell phone took off. So I did that primary for 6 years.
Okay. And so this is it. And back in this time, what was this? Because I know cell phones now are totally different. What was the cell phone landscape then?
Really, we were just selling service provider. It was like T-Mobile back then, VoiceStream, So each time I sign up someone for a year or 2 year contract, and I'll get a commission.
Okay.
I think it's like $100. So yeah.
Were you selling those phones with the fancy light up, everything on the back?
True story. I did, but I did not know how to do it. So actually, I bought the parts, and then the client asked me to assemble it, and I didn't know how. So I actually took it to my competitor. I asked him to install it, and then I brought it back and I gave it to the client.
You just charge a premium on it? Is that what you
Yeah,
did?
pretty much. Because my first go around, I didn't know how to do it because you got to cut out something or else it won't fit. So I didn't know, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, how did you feel starting your own business? How did you go about it? Like, I know that's a big jump. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of, things to get started. How did you jump into it and get going?
Honestly, I didn't know better, and it was really just you buy phones on credit, like 30-day, 60-day credit.
Just off your credit card, or did you have like a business line or something?
No, it was like a net 30 from this provider.
Oh, they gave you their own line of credit.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
interesting.
yeah, so they gave us like 24 and 30 phones, which is about like $100 per one.
Okay.
They gave us a 30-day net. The commission comes in, minus that off, and then we start over.
Huh.
And then
So did you even keep your own like P&L and everything separately, or you just use what they have?
just whatever they have.
Amazing.
And then at that time, my mom guaranteed the loan,
She co-signed for you or whatever.
yeah, the net 30, and so from that's how I got started.
Hmm. And at that time you were selling pretty much to the Vietnamese community because of your cousin, or was it a mix of clients?
It's mostly Asians, but heavily Vietnamese because the video store was basically Vietnamese movies.
Because this was before that you could get that stuff online, right? You had to like go in to get it.
Yeah, pretty much because the movie thing is released like once a week, so there's a continual clientele that always come out for those movies. And then since I was there, and at that time, there's still a lot of English barriers and stuff like that. So I was more or less just a translator to the cell phone service and the people that's activating them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. And I remember you telling me like you had some pretty crazy weekends, like the margins were pretty good. Why did you have to get out of the cell phone world?
So originally, it was only a 1 year contract, and within our community, it was really easy because every year they'll upgrade, and the phones, voice stream T-Mobile, they use the SIM chips. And so that phone, you could use it again in Vietnam. So that was a big benefit.
So they could sell it to their family back in Vietnam.
They just shipped it back.
Yeah, so they'll just upgrade. So like the next year, they'll open a new account. The old phone, they'll just send it back. So it worked out really well because each year they come back. So my clientele kept on getting bigger and bigger. But once they transitioned to a 2 year contract, I kind of saw the sign on the wall. Basically, if you have a number for 2 years, it's really hard to change. But if your number is like every year changing, they get used to it. It's a habit. And then what I was doing, it was called churning every year, and that's frowned upon within the industry because T-Mobile and stuff thinks that once they have the client, they don't want to pay the commission again on the second year.
Oh, because it was like their initial setup commission because they were getting a new number every time. I see. So it was like bigger than just renewing a contract.
Yeah. So like year one, husband signed. Year two, wife signed. They kept on going back and forth. Worked out for me for a while until they say, "Hey, stop doing that."
I see.
And obviously, you started real estate after that. Like, what got you into that? Like, what sold you on I should become a real estate agent?
Truthfully, back in 2006, when I was transitioning, I was trying to figure out A, should I be a lender, or B, should I be a realtor? And I was in a parking lot over at, I think, 92nd and Sunnybrook, which is like near the Costco. Actually, my first office was there. I used to work for Remax. But I went there to sign for some paper or something, and I saw the cars. Lender has crappier cars. Realtor had
That's still
cars.
true, by the way.
The problem back then I did not know is if I went with lending, I had a nice hour, 9 to 5, and pretty much it. And I have weekends and nights off. And those cars are paid for. versus the realtors where most of them are leased. And so, and I have to work all the time.
So you're saying lenders have more financial sense than realtors?
Some lender has more.
We'll see in the next few months, right? So, and why were those your two choices? Like, why did you know you wanted? Had you bought a home already? Like, what made you know that you wanted to be in real estate?
So I bought my first house when I was like 19.
Oh, you had already purchased a home then.
Yeah. In '06, I was 24, I think. Yeah.
How did you purchase your home at 19 working at McDonald's?
No, I started my business when I was 18.
Oh, okay.
And then 19, I bought my first home. I bought it from my cousin. The funny part was because back then there's, Wachovia, Countrywide or whatever, they have like pickup payment for plans. So
option to pay, right?
yeah. So my first home I bought from my cousin. My other cousin gave me lent me 20% down payment. My landlord at that time actually wrote my income statement or verified my pay stubs or whatever. So I bought the home pretty much with zero down. And as long as she had a pulse back then, you're able to sign. So it's pretty cool.
This is your first burr?
No, I kept it for a long time because that home became a rental, and then I actually moved back because after 2006-07 crash, and then eventually in 2014 or 15, I ended up selling it to do a 1031 on it. It took me a while to let that go because that home was my first home and it was my safety net.
Right.
Like I felt if I ever screwed up, I could always go back to McDonald's, make my minimum wage, and still afford my $1,000 mortgage payment.
Right.
But once I sold that, it kind of ripped off my Band-Aid, but I felt really good after I sold it because now instead of earning like $100 in passive income, I traded for a sixplex, and I think we're doing at least $1,500 or $2,000 a month on that.
Wow, you traded a single family home to a sixplex within how many years? 2000. What was that? 2000 to 2014.
Yeah, we bought it back in '02. No, 2001 or 2002.
Yeah.
At that time, that house we paid $150 for it. Eventually, I ended up selling for like $215. So I didn't have a lot of equity. However, I took that equity and I went to Sweet Home and I bought a sixplex for $230.
Sweet Home. Where is that?
It's about 30 minutes away from Corvallis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Small town, yeah.
So you can imagine, single family back then in 2014-15 for $215 I sold, which now is probably worth $475. But I traded a single family to a sixplex, only $230.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. I mean, that would be a great, well, obviously a great deal today.
Yeah.
You know, that's a great deal in like Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I did that with a 1031 exchange, and then it just increased from a $100 passive to like $700-800 right away in that year, and now it grew to a lot more than that.
Do you still own that property?
Yes.
You've renovated a couple of times at this point, or?
Add a new roof, paint, probably new doors and windows. And the same year we end up buying another 14 unit down the street. So we have like 20 unit Sweet Home. Flash forward a couple years later, we did a refi out. We took all of our money out, and it still cash flowed the same.
So it was a burr at the end of the
Eventually,
day.
yeah.
Just took a little bit longer than some of them.
Yep.
Yeah. And I do want to jump back to kind of like your real estate agent career. You jumped in 2006. I'm sure a lot of agents were just, doing a million deals here and there, and it looked like good money. Like, how are you feeling when you got started and then the crash happened?
So the cool thing about my start was I never felt the success back in 05-04 with most realtor. In 2006, it was on the tail end before it started going down in 07.
Because rates had gone up, right, in 2006. I just looked this up, they were at like 6.5%, which is kind of similar to what we're seeing right now after being lower, right?
Yeah, so when I bought my or what about my second home? I think it's like in '04. My first rate was probably like 5 or 6, and then my second was like 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a second on it with like 10% or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, rate was high, and the market was everything kind of paused in '07, '08. So for me, with real estate, I didn't know better, so I didn't know what to expect, and I just did what I did for a couple years until 2012. Then when I shifted from being reactive agents to being proactive. So that's where from 2012 until now, um, a lot of my value and stuff that came from, I guess.
So and were you able to, from running your business, your cell phone business, were you able to transfer some of that client base over to real estate, or did you not have those kind of relationships, or how did that work?
Nope. The cell phone business is more transactional,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't really have any of those people come through. I probably should have kept better names, phone numbers, and stuff. But yeah, I started over.
I mean, you were
from
19
scratch.
years old. You didn't know what you were doing.
No, at this point, he was 24, 25.
Well, when you started, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know how to like set up record keeping and.
I still don't.
That's why when Tony picks up the phone, he's like, "Who's this?"
No, we have call ID, so it's not too bad. And I actually keep notes on people now with my contacts, so at least I know their kids' names and pets and stuff.
So, how did you survive from basically 2006 to 2012 with high interest rates and the market slowing down and people being scared? This is like a good 5 to 6 year period. How are you basically surviving financially as an agent?
So I met my wife back in '06, '07, and from there we were surviving off of one income. She was the W-2 earner. Eventually, the commission that I did make, we put that into more investments. So for quite some time, we did the Dave Ramsey stuff. Like $300, $400 a month. Trying to live off of that. We didn't go crazy.
Right.
I downgraded from a Mercedes to a Prius, and eventually I went to another Toyota for a long time. And so until we had a good passive stream of income, we didn't start spending. We were really budget conscious for the first 5 years of our marriage.
So you kind of used one income, your W-2 income, just to focus on your expenses, make sure you didn't have a lot of debt, but then use all your real estate income you just pushed into investing in real estate and other passive income investments.
Yeah, we doubled down, tripled down on investment for at least 5 to 10 years.
And right out of the gate, were you pretty risky, or were you more conservative, or how did you go about? Were you looking for flips, or was it more for rental properties? How did you strategize?
So our investment career really didn't take off until probably like 14 or 15, because I think our first investment we did buy was probably back in 2010 or 12.
Okay.
And then we slowly built on from that. And then
that was like a traditional save 20% or 25% or something, or
no. So I always been pretty creative. So my wife and I bought our first condo for $45K because it was a short sale.
Okay.
We cashed it up, but of course I didn't have money back in 2010 or 12. I ended up borrowing money from family to buy it in cash. So it's a 45K condo. I used an excuse, and then I was able to get money because my family don't support my investment habits.
They didn't want to give you money to invest in a speculative real estate investment. They wanted to give you money for something else, though.
They'll give me money for bailout. So
bailout from jail.
Mom, I need to pay my credit card.
Any sort of bailout.
Yeah.
But investing, no, because they're not believer investments back then.
They weren't then, but now
They're becoming more, yeah. They're willing to write blank checks now, but before then, they were more cautious. We'll just say that. So I bought my first condo, 45K. HOA was like $300. I was able to rent it out for like $1,200 through Section 8. And then another condo popped up in the same building complex. And when I bought it, this area, 92nd Favela, is named Phony Flat. I didn't know better, but eventually I figured out why. It's still a great investment, but yeah, everyone else told me to stay away from it. But 45K for a 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot condo, it seemed cheap.
Paid off. That's great. I mean, I'd buy there any day. I don't care how many crimes are happening. You know?
So about the first one, and then another one came up. I was like, okay, so how can I go buy that one? I can't go back to my family and have the same excuse.
I need to be bailed out of jail again. I'm sorry. This cell phone business has really hit me hard.
That's my first time learning about hard money. So I took the free and clear one. I bought the second one, and I crossed them both. And they actually gave me a check for like $70K. So I actually got
so they put a lien on both of those properties, and then gave you so they collateralized it.
Yeah. So that's my first time paying like 7 points. 3 points was going back to the guy that made the connection, and then 4 points was through the company that lent me the money. But 7 point at $60K is not that bad.
It's not crazy.
Nowadays, yeah. And then it was 12% interest, but I was paying like $800 in interest for a couple years. But I'm collecting like $2,400 minus my $600 HOA because 3 on each side. I'm still making a
So it's still cash flowing. Felt like free money.
I didn't even know you could hold hard money loans for that long.
Yeah. They allow up to like 23 months.
Okay.
As long as you're making your payments, right?
Yeah. And as long as it's an investment, because the new Dodd-Frank laws and stuff. So I did that. A couple years later, I did a refi out. I think the new interest rate was like 5 or 6%. Home Street financed me. So that was pretty cool. And then flash forward a couple more years, I ended up selling each of them for like 106. So I doubled my money.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so at this point, you're more or less have replaced the income that you were making in the cell phone world passively.
No, but back in the days, I made really good money on cell phone. It's just, I just never kept it.
Spend it on Mercedes.
That's where you got the Mercedes, yeah.
Yeah, no, I had a good life back then because, we open at 11? So I'll go into the office or the shop at 11, 12 o'clock. I went out for lunch for about an hour, and then I usually take off around 3 for happy hour.
That's a nice work day.
Yeah, no, it worked out really well for a while, but yeah, I just never kept my money. I should have. So,
yeah. And you were buying through this whole period where people were still pretty scared, like 2006 to 2012. Like, what made you keep just putting money towards that investment? Like you said, you didn't even blow up till like 2014. So what were you like, okay, yeah, let's get another one? Is it just the price point and you're like, this has to go up somehow, or?
No, I just like collecting $300-500 a month on each rental.
So always cash flow for you.
Most of our deal that we buy cash flow. Last year we bought a couple things. We call it land banking. So we're banking on the land, and so it's kind of breaking even. But but I don't suggest that until once you have a certain amount that it cannot unravel. But yeah.
You mean you can support it?
Yeah, without having a hedge.
With your other investments, basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the beginning, we're very cautious. We're just adding more properties that cash flows, that makes sense. Like a couple years later, we end up buying a couple of the duplex in Longview. And at that time, that was pretty cool. That was a good investment. We did use hard money on those too. Um, Back then, I think it's like 100K for 2 units, and we're renting them out for like $600-700 a piece. Um, Hard money again, 30% down, still kind of cash flow, and we kept on adding more on that, and we just liquidated them. The last one early this year, right? And the one
Yeah. Earlier this year, I helped you sell one of those.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool, and we sold it for three time what we paid for it, and most of them we did 1031 exchange on.
Yeah, and you're cash flowing the whole time. I mean, I know that's long view, but even the one on Flavel, you're saying like that obviously cash flowed because you bought it all cash,
Right.
45K. I mean, Portland's not a cash flow market now.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, so I think obviously I wasn't buying real estate back in 2010, 2012, etc. But I find it kind of crazy that you can cash flow that much in Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like a couple years ago we bought stuff in Columbus, Ohio. It cash flow until you receive the repair bills. So it just depends on what you're willing to stomach.
Yeah.
Our state now is probably more of an equity play than cash flow play.
Yeah, because you don't need that money on hand right away. Like it's just like a little piggy bank that you can access later, and it grows faster. It grows your wealth faster, right?
It depends, but like my goal is always gotta have some sort of cash flow, gotta have some sort of equity play, the upside on it. If not, then I don't want to touch it. But I'm in a different position now where I'm able to be more choosy.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, pretty early on when I met you, Tony, you had done an interesting project where you found a home that was a lot that you were interested in. Actually, it was in North Portland, and you bought the home, demolished it, and built two attached homes on it. At what point did you kind of realize, okay, I'm buying these, I'm renting them out, but now I'm going to move on towards like flipping and renovating and value adding, I guess.
The flipping part was because back in 2014 or 15, I was helping. I'll label it as a soccer mom. She was buying deals between gym. So she dropped off her kid at private school, like go to the gym for an hour or two, and then buy properties, and then renovate them / work them up, work it, like make it nicer during the weekend with her husband, and then pick up her kids at 2:30. It's like, if she could do it, I can do it. From that's how I started.
So one of your clients got you into it. Or was it a client or just a friend? Or?
A client.
Yeah.
A client for a while until she said, "Hey, you want to buy the stuff that I'm buying?" It's like, no, it's stuff that's through our MLS. You have first dib. I'll buy stuff through wholesale, but eventually, yeah.
Huh. So that's cool. So you learned. I have also, by the way, learned investment strategies from a client. So that's great. So you started flipping. Tell us about your little. I know you're famous for like Tony sharing his failures. Tell us about some of the mishaps because I mean, obviously flipping can work out really well, but it can be hard. Tell us some of the struggles that you had with flipping.
Do we have 10 hours?
It could be an extra long episode. We can cut it up. No, I'm just kidding.
No, let's see. Like
Or one in particular, maybe that was like, I should have known this, or
a horror story if you have any.
Yeah.
Horror story. Irvington, there was a nice home on 26. I want to say 1722 Northeast 26. It still gives me nightmares. So we bought that as a JV with a wholesaler friend, and then it took, I think it took us $20K just to dump out the stuff. It was very interesting.
Oh, just to clean the property.
Was it a hoarder house?
Yeah, but it was really nice hoarder house though, right? Like they had magazines and stuff stacked. In the basement, they have egg cartons that they use for installations.
Oh,
But it's very nicely insulated. It was
would that pass code today?
Will it pass? Yes, as long as it doesn't get wet. So as long as there's not mold. But yeah, so the story was he died in the basement. Um, so everything's kind of left alone for about a year. So it's interesting. But we went through that. I think our biggest mistake was the master bedroom. It was on the upper level with only one bedroom, but if we could have had like a master with two other bedrooms, like three bedroom on one level, probably would sold a lot quicker. We end up, it was nice, but then we end up kind of breaking even or losing a little bit on it, and so that's one failure.
And so the issue was that you had to spend more cleaning it out than you thought you would, and then it sold. Did the market turn, or did it just sell for less than you had comped it out for? You weren't being conservative enough in your comps.
Our renovation budget just went way over. I think we were budgeting 150, but it ended up like 250 or 225.
Oh Jesus!
And then it just sat on the market longer because it was not as desirable. Location is great, but it's just not desirable with the layout.
I see.
And then if I could go back in time, anything that I could not make money on back then, I should just kept it somehow as a rental or burr or whatever until I can make money. But yeah, that's mistake number one.
So you're saying like even if you can't move it right away, maybe just refinance out. Even if your monthly payment isn't cash flowing a ton, as long as you're not stuck in there too much, eventually rent's going to go up, value's going to go up, and it's better to do that than to lose, take a loss.
Yeah, especially in Portland, if we wait 7 to 10 years, most property, especially inner city, will probably double.
Mm-hmm.
It
That's
might
been
be
the story
8,
for the last few decades, right?
yeah, it might be 8 to 12 right now, but still, within the next 10 years, everything will double. Fast forward, failure number 99. It's just really handling your contractors is probably the biggest gripe that most people say, because I have a good contractor, and then I try to add a different contractor. He was more detailed upfront, paperwork wise, this and that, seemed nice, and so we signed him up for 2 projects, and it was a horror story. It's just a big challenge, messy. We had to go through arbitration and stuff like that, and yeah, so it cost a lot of time, of course, a lot of money, and a lot of possible money, because it just took a while. So that was a bad thing. And then a different one is the same thing. It's just contractor. You got to vet the contractor really well, or you got to be really hands on. If you're not, then you got to send it to the pros, pay a little bit more, but make sure that it'll get done.
Yeah. And I obviously you partner with both of us. Can you kind of talk about your selection choice with like partners and how that works and how you go about that?
Partner wise, it's really trying to. We all have different traits. Nowadays, I'm more selective than before. Before, it's just a little easier because I didn't know better. But now, yeah, it's different. I partner with Jordan because we're looking for the same thing. We're looking for a passive income. We're both extremely busy. We don't have a lot of time, so we wanted stuff that's hands off. And at that time, interest rate made sense, property made sense, and so we're able to jump on and buy a couple of properties. So higher or less, it's more like vetting out the deals. He's the one that blesses it, and he handles the rents and mortgage payment stuff. So yeah, and so that's one thing that we're doing, and we have a goal in there to build it up more. But because of the current market, we're probably going to wait until the price drops or rents really make it more desirable to jump back in on that concept.
Yeah. Okay. Wait until they find the right deal, right?
Yeah. And then with Steven, I really like the investment stuff, the flipping or more of the burr stuff. And I believe you have more time, you're willing to do more of the day-to-day GC stuff. And without trust, there's no partnerships.
Yeah. Yeah, trust is a big thing, and I feel like I've been advised to like put together contracts and do all this stuff, but and of course, I think an attorney will always advise that, but I think more important than having a contract with someone is having a base level of trust.
I mean, there's the trust and well, the contracts for it's like, I think the most important thing is what happens if somebody like passes away or something, obviously horrific happens. Like obviously you have a contract to put things in the right place, but I really do think that having that trust in your partner is super important. You can have a contract and have somebody do absolutely nothing,
Right. Yep.
So that's good.
Well, and at least in our case, if you're both on the mortgage, there's built-in contract, right? It affects both of you, right? If you're both on title, you're vested in a specific way. That some of that's built in to a certain extent, which keeps you honest.
Well, on the deeds, if you have both names on it, but if you label it as survivor ownerships or whatever, then one died, the other one gets the whole thing. So,
Right. So that's why you got to know how to vest properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you still got to understand the wording and stuff, or else.
Consult with the estate attorney. It's usually a good idea if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people who, invest with a lot of people based on potential and not a lot of trust. And, a lot of bad things can happen. So,
Right. That's true. Yeah. If you start with the trust and then move on to the potential, it's usually a good partnership.
yeah.
Yeah, like our deal on 91st, we might actually end up losing money.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do we want to try again, or is that one and done?
Well, for me, I think it's okay to make mistakes. Like I think I've had a pretty good track record of things working out so far, and I think, the ones that don't work out teach you a lesson. Like I think for us, this is what our shared horror story is that, hey, we didn't get a good contractor, and maybe it's important that our contractors write notes or have a record of what we ask them to do because, we can tell them to do the same thing 10 times. And if they don't do it, then maybe that should be a sign early on to fire them, because I went to talk to that same contractor a ton and they're like, yeah, I'll get it done. And I come back and it's done. Either it's not done or it's done wrong. So, that's a lesson learned. Like, hey, maybe like you were saying, maybe it's better to just, pay someone who's going to do a good job.
Yeah, and then the timing, right? Like normal flips take 3 or 4 or 5 months, and the landscape can change really quick.
Yeah.
And so if we were able to keep it within that time frame, we probably would have made money.
Yeah.
But we stretch it to almost a year, so a lot of stuff can happen in a year. So that's where it was our bad. But the next question is, after we unload, do we end up trying to look for a different deal because the market is shifting? Do we wait? Do we,
Well, yeah, and I think that between us is like we have that trust, I think, and I don't think it was any of our bads. It's just things happened the way that they did. Markets changed drastically from when we purchased it till now. So those are things we couldn't have exactly foreseen. How drastically things could have gone. So I think that's okay. It's a lesson learned, and I'm okay with like getting the money out and figuring out, hey, what's a good use for this money in this time, which we would love to hear what your thoughts are. If like you were to, let's say we got out of this deal completely even, what would you do with that money that we had?
Yeah, where are you seeing deals in this market right now? What are your clients asking you about, talking to you about?
So just being a realtor, right now I'm just helping clients that's relocating, or B, they're renting and they want to own. I'm not really getting a lot of clients that are having a 3-bedroom and wanting to move to a 4-bedroom because their current rate is probably like 3 or 4, let's say, and to switch to one more bedroom, that's like $1,000 or $1,500 more in payment. They'll make do in their 3 bedrooms. So I don't see a lot of people transitioning up, and vice versa. I don't see a lot of people transitioning from bigger home to a smaller home. Why trade to a smaller home for the same payment? So I'm trying to focus on more relocation clients and more maybe people are just done with college and they're looking to buy,
right?
They're looking to house hack. So at house hacking, interest rate doesn't really matter because they're trying to build equity for the future.
Yeah, are you seeing any people like interested in like value add stuff now, or are wholesalers having more stuff available? What about that kind of world of renovation?
So yes, wholesaler does have more inventory. Pricings, even with wholesale deals, there again, price reduction, price improving because a lot of stuff doesn't sell. The only question is how do you comp stuff out? Because today might be worth 600, a month from now it might be 590. They keep on going down. So how does that work? Yesterday I was having lunch with my PB, principal broker. He was telling me each 1% interest rate that goes up, you're really losing like 50K in value or buying power and stuff like that. So it's very tough.
Yeah, especially if you're in that like 600 to 800 price range. I mean, obviously, if you're in a market where homes are 150 to like 250, it's not the same kind of value shift. But in a market like that buy up market, move up market, especially in this area, that's kind of tough, huh?
Yeah. Like I have a client that's looking over on the west side at 1.3 price tag at 6.2 interest rate, 20% down. They're paying like $7,000. But if they're able to get buy down or do an arm at 5.6, their payment is like 6,000. It's like $1,000 difference. It's crazy. Just imagine a year ago when interest rate is like 4. It's like, wait, 4,500. Like
Yeah.
it's a big difference. It's yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that was, and part of the reason there was so many bidding wars and stuff is because it was like, oh, add on another $50,000, my monthly payment went up, $150 or something like that. It's like, so minimal compared to now interest rates are up nearly 3.5% from this time last year. The difference is definitely felt.
Or is doubled. 3.5 last year, and now 7. So you doubled the interest rate.
Yeah.
Now, so that's why some banks are having 40 years terms and stuff like that. So they're trying to ease the pain, but who are they easing?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still curious to see if Fannie and Freddie will ever adopt that. But
Well, I mean, I know it's tough for just like regular home buyers, but are you seeing any opportunities for investors? Are you sitting on the sidelines? Like, what are you thinking as an investor, like looking to obviously make money with real estate?
Uh, I'm still buying if the number makes sense, but foremost, I gotta have enough reserve or backup for at least 1 year. And I can't touch that because, we don't know where the market is. Like this year in June and July, I had my first zero commission. That's by design, not by default, but you gotta plan for the worst. And I think, especially a lot of newer agents, they haven't seen the worst because most of them started like what the last 5 years. So it's probably gonna get worse before it get better.
Yeah.
So I'm commission based, so I'm very nervous about that. Luckily, I have passive income, so I'm not, my life is not going to change. I might not be able to travel more.
every weekend.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be more like every other weekend.
I might have to stay in town now versus flying out, but we'll see. So it's just different. But once you have your reserves, then as long as it makes sense, for me, if it cash flow and it has potential equity growth, yes, you might not see equity within the next 1 or 2 years, but I know that especially in Oregon, Portland, we have a lot of stats and it shows a lot of numbers, and I'm confident in Portland, so I would still invest if I could get it cash flow with a fixed interest rate, of course.
Do you see any opportunity in getting something in this current, obviously, interest market and then refinancing down the line when things get a little bit better?
If it cash flow, but a lot of time when we analyze numbers, it doesn't cash flow, especially when investment interest rates like at 7.5% right now.
Like, I mean, obviously people are getting better deals now in terms of the actual sale price. Are you telling, like, how are you working that with clients,
And so the client that's buying is really they're in an apartment, buying. So of course
It's better than rent,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
It's better than renting. Rents will all goes up. At least this, you're in a home. No one can force you to move. You can always house hack as long as you can qualify for your mortgage. You know, because I've done that and it works out really well. Um, or people that relocate here, they have to buy.
Yeah.
And then there's always cash buyers. Then interest rate doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I coming from the Bay Area, I have a lot of Bay Area friends who are like, oh, I can get a house for $1 million. I have all cash. I'll come do that, you know?
Yeah, and then you still get your 6-7% return on it. Why not?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
We just have to find a different clientele than we're used to.
Yeah. Which is, it's tough for a lot of people. Back in January, we were all throwing like $100,000 over for our offers and hoping for the best, no inspections. I know we had a couple of those ourselves. Like, oh, they're not fixing anything? Okay, I guess there's nothing we can do about it. I guess we'll just take it. You
Yeah.
know?
I just closed a deal today for first-time home buyer. They were nervous a couple of times, and so they paid $5K less than asking, and they got a $5,000 credit for closing costs. They were expecting to buy the property as is. They did a home inspection. There was a couple issues that came up. They asked the seller, fix these items or else we'll walk. The seller did not even negotiate. They say, okay, they'll fix it. And so that's where the market we're in. And then they actually kind of went through the process, and then they were interest rate went up, so they had to buy down their rate.
Mm-hmm.
And then seller actually willing to help after the inspection period is over, contribute another $5,000 to help buy down the rate because seller did not want the house to go back on the market. And so, buyer paid a little bit more to keep their rate lower. Seller helped a little bit to bring down the rates, and then it closed today.
Yeah. So there is opportunity, if you are creative with it, if you push hard and you have a great agent, obviously. I'm pointing at Tony, by the way, for listeners.
Yeah, it's just at the end of the day, right now it's more of a team sport than before. Before seller had the rights, has all the control, all the leverage. Now it's more of, hey, we got to make it work together, or else you're not selling, buyer's not buying, and yeah.
Yeah, I think there's more psychology in play in this market for sure. Like, okay, are they willing to go on this market? I'll dare them if they're going to do it. It's like playing poker with the seller, kind of.
Well, at the end of the day, it got to be a win-win, and then listing agents understand that, hey, if the property is off the market for a month, numbers has changed, and coming back on, there's always going to be what happened. But if they could figure out how to keep it together, then it's probably for the best of all parties. Because if it does come back on the market, it's probably going to have another price reduction.
Yeah.
So it's not, did they really save 5,000 or going to lose 10 or 15 once it goes back on the market?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I'm sure that's really, that's a lot of steps to think through for a lot of agents who are just like, well, you didn't want to take all my money over asking. Now we really have to think about it. Think about okay, these are your repercussions if you go back on market, and are you really willing to risk that?
Yeah, and then it depends on the seller paying, right? Like going back into the West Side property, that seller that is trying to sell that home bought a home back in May, and now they have double payments, and they're going through November, December, which is the holiday month, and Portland is notorious for not moving a lot of product during the holidays. So, they just did another price reduction of like $100K. They started out at 1.9, now they're down to 1.3, and they probably won't take 1.2 because they don't want double payment, or else they have to go rent the home, and so it's just tough. Are they losing at 1.2? No, because they bought the home 24 years ago for like $200,000, but it's just bad timing.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've been in major growth mode the last 15 years, pushing everything you could, doing burrs, doing flips, doing JVs. Are you at this point thinking about moving more towards consolidation? Or are you still in growth mode? What's your kind of 5-year plan, or when have you reached that point where you'd be like, okay, I can kind of step off the gas a little bit?
I set off the gas probably did earlier this year. I do buy when there's an opportunity, but it has to be like a huge opportunity.
So you're waiting for like the low hanging fruit. You're not trying to get the scaffolding and get whatever you can.
No, I'm really cherry picking. I wait for deals to fall in my lap.
Mm.
I if there's a lot of resistance, I'm out. I enjoy spending my time helping my clients find their homes, find their deals. But me personally, I'm not going to do stuff unless it's easy, and then it's going to be a guaranteed winner. A couple years ago, I had a model of by 10, one will be bad. So I have 8 out of 10. But now it has to be perfect each time. If not, then I'm not touching it because I really don't want to lose. I'm hoping the last bad deal I have is 91st.
Our deal. That's me and Tony's deal right now.
Yeah, but beside that, moving forward, it's going to be overanalyze before I jump in on something.
So instead of that, I'm just going to make a quick decision. I know the long-term market's good. I can just, like you said, if as long as I make 80% of them good, now I'm going to find every red flag that I can before I buy this property, basically.
Yeah, because nowadays I do more JV stuff, so I'm okay getting hurt, but I don't want the JV to get hurt either. So, so the cool thing is like I'll analyze it. The partner would analyze it.
Have a couple sets of eyes on it. That helps. That's a good point of partnership too. Is you can look at it from a couple layers.
Both everybody's risk tolerance is in there. So
Yeah.
When everybody's comfortable, then it's probably a better deal than you yourself. You may be feeling emotional about a property or whatever, and make a rash decision. So it's good to have multiple sets of eyes.
Yeah, and then like my biggest thing is if I'm not happy about a deal where I could like go shout from the rooftop, I'm not going to buy it because, it's like when you have a hot potato, you're very excited. You want to tell everyone. But when you have like average deals, like,
So if you're not posting about it on Facebook, then it's probably not worth it.
I haven't shared a lot of stuff on Facebook in a while, but yeah.
And Tony, you've mentioned to me personally about like getting to a point where you're just paying down your properties. Do you think you're going to get to that soon, and you're just going to stop buying and just pay things off so that they just cash flow even more? Or
so, yes, I have a personal goal when my son finished high school. So he's in 4th grade now. So we have probably another 8 years. I truly believe that we're going into a recession. So whenever we get there, I want to start buying a couple more properties, and then the next run up, I'm going to start unloading. My goal is to be debt free from everything when he start college, and then if I want to start building it up again, I'll build up under his name because by then he'll be 18.
Okay.
So you might liquidate, 30, 40%, 50% of your profile.
I'm hoping 25% to cover all my debts after tax.
Okay.
So if that works out, then that means Portland probably doubled up in the next 10 years.
I see.
And then I'll probably transition a lot of property.
Liquidating is more fun than paying off the mortgage individually one at a time, huh?
You can always do the snowball effect. It's not too bad. So yeah. So I just found your angles, right? Because the snowball effects I like, but then interest rate's so low right now. It's like it's hard to pay off stuff. I think I only have one friend that has property that's free and clears. Yeah, eventually I want to be like him.
Do you have a goal number in mind? Like, how many doors you want to hold, or how much money you want to have each month, or that you feel comfortable with, that you're aiming towards?
I'm comfortable with where I'm at now. If I could triple what I have in passive income and it's all free and clear, I'll be a happy camper.
Okay.
So still some work to do.
Eventually, yeah.
Oh, well, I know we have a lot of first-time investor listeners here. Like, for someone looking to get started, like, what would you recommend for them and how to get going?
If they're local in Portland, I truly believe in house hacking.
Mm.
Buying a home, especially if you don't have kids yet. Buy a home with 5% down, 3.5 down, etc. Or go buy a duplex, triplex.
Something with the ADU.
Yeah, and then rent it out. Try to live as cheaply as possible, but still in decent living standards. Save that money for the next purchase, and then add a couple property. And then eventually, when school become important, then go buy your forever home or
Mm-hmm.
your transition home. But at the very beginning, especially after out of high school, out of college, just buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you got to build equity. The younger you start, it's
Yeah.
a lot easier than later.
Yeah, you're much more willing to share if you have a 3-bedroom house. You're much more willing to share a 1-bedroom than when you're married and have 3 kids. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. But by then maybe you can buy a house with an ADU.
Yeah.
And then it's separated,
Mm-hmm.
or turn the ADU into an Airbnb. But always have that house hacking mindset,
Mm-hmm.
because why do you want to pay for the whole mortgage?
Yeah, either have your other properties pay for it or have somebody in your house pay for it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find a way to live for free.
Mortgage free. Some people pay off their homes. Some people have tenant pay off your homes. Your choice.
Well, great. Thank you again, Tony, so much, obviously, for the friendship and for the mentorship and for coming on the show. If someone wants to reach out to you, pick your brain about investments, where can they find you?
Instagram or Facebook, and then of course my website, movewithtony.com, and I'm always available.
What's your Instagram handle?
If I know, Tony Ngo, PDX Realtor, I want to say.
I thought it was Tony Realtor PDX. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, we'll post it. We'll post it.
We'll link it.
Yeah.
I'm not social media.
Okay. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.